Okay, good morning, everybody. We're going to call this meeting to order. This is the Human Services Background Study Eligibility Task Force. Today is Friday, already the 2nd of December. And thank you all for being here. Mr. Vogel, could you please do a formal roll call?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Ms. Basham?
Present.
Thank you. Senator Champion? Senator Champion. Ms. Dawson?
Present.
Mr. Esme?
Present. Present.
Ms. Evans?
Here.
Mr. Gaffin?
Present.
Mr. Hanson?
Present.
Ms. Huntley?
Good morning, present.
Good morning. Mr. Urban?
Present.
Ms. Kaser? Ms. Kaser? Mr. Kammer?
Present.
Lieutenant Knotts?
Present.
Judge Kulik?
Present.
Senator Matthews? Senator Matthews? Ms. Mattson?
Present.
Representative Mueller?
Present.
Inspector General Modi?
Present.
Mr. Page? Mr. Page? Ms. Robertus? Ms. Robertus? Representative Robbins?
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Sandoval? Mr. Sandoval? I'm marking Mr. Sandoval as absent, although I think he was just trying to get in, Mr. Chair, so I'll mark him as present when we bring him in. Judge Satterback? Judge Satterback? Ms. Sherlock?
Present.
Mr. Tatum? Mr. Tatum? Ms. Williamson?
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, 17 of the 25 members are present. A quorum is present.
Well, Leo is getting, Mr. Sandoval is getting a note on his screen that says the host is not allowing participants to unmute themselves.
Thank you very much, Ms. Evans. I will look into that, and I will also, as Mr. Sandoval's in, I will also mark him as present. So thank you for letting me know.
That may be problematic for voting. If we can't get it fixed, you may want to turn the chat on.
Yes, Ms. Evans. I'll fix that right away. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vogel. Thank you, Ms. Evans. Mr. Sandoval, we are working on resolving your issue. If others have issues, please communicate those as well. I think the first thing that we need to do today is adopt meeting minutes. Our last two meetings, we did not have quorum at our last meeting on the 18th of November. So we're going to try to adopt meetings from the 18th and 4th of November. Is that correct, Mr. Vogel, in terms of dates?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Vogel has posted on the task force website meeting minutes from both November 4th and November 18th. Does anybody have any concerns, corrections, amendments, or changes of any type? Seeing no hands raised, hearing no objections, those meeting minutes are adopted as written. Thank you, Mr. Vogel. Today we are scheduled to do some voting, voting specifically on our subcommittee task force recommendations, both from remedies and the disqualification task force. We're at that moment in time where we're taking the bullets points that were put together by the subcommittees and writing and fulfilling our legislative mandate to submit a report, including recommendations. What we're going to do today, and I'm going to defer to a little bit of a tutorial from Mr. Vogel on voting. I think there's more than just a yes and a no. There are some other options Mr. Vogel will go over. But we're going to first, Mr. Vogel is going to put up the disqualification subcommittee bullet points, where we have had numerous discussions about these. So we're going to go right to a vote after that. I see Ms. Kaser is here too, Mr. Vogel. I'll add her to our quorum. And I
Thanks.
see Mr. Burris here as well, so and we want to make sure they're included in all votes as well.
I've just marked him as present, Mr. Chair.
Before I move any further, Mr. Sandoval, I see you. Can you unmute?
Yes, I can. Thank you for checking.
Okay. All right, fantastic.
Thank you. Well,
Did I
Yeah,
Mr. Vogel, did I forget anything as we move forward to vote?
I don't believe so, Mr. Chair. I apologize. I'm having a technical issue with my PDF reader on my end, so it's taking me a moment to pull these bullets up.
Certainly, take your time. And just for those who were not here last week, we want to give a little bit of an update. We didn't have quorum, and so I made a decision to task Mr. Vogel with drafting, taking the recommendations from the subcommittees and starting, I should say, to draft the final report. Mr. Vogel has been working on that, and we will have early next week our rough draft. Obviously, the reason we did this is we needed to put pen to paper and move forward and not put ourselves and, Mr. Vogel in a position where he's writing, over the holidays or something. We need to get it done, and that was the decision. There's nothing concrete about the rough draft. There's nothing concrete about anything. We haven't had the vote, but we did task him with that. But today we're looking at our bullet points. We're going to start with the disqualification subcommittee and move forward. Disqualification subcommittee, as you can see here, this is a document that we've distributed, had 5 recommendations. If you just go to the top for a second, Mr. Vogel, the 5 were analyzing the list of disqualifying offenses, the length of the disqualification for offenses, when should the disqualification period begin, an analysis of juvenile cases, and a shorter piece on child foster care rules, which, as most people remember, was, hey, leave them alone for now, and let's continue to collect data. Want to just scroll through it quickly, Will, and then we'll move forward with our vote.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. You wanted me to talk through these recommendations, right?
I think they've been distributed, and
Okay.
we've gone over them 3 different times. What I was hoping you would discuss is what are your options when voting? There's yes, there's no, there's abstain, and there was, I think, even another.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So yes, no, abstain. Members also have the option to pass, essentially, to defer voting when their name is called in the roll, and then we can circle back around, or I can circle back around to them for them to cast one of those 3 options later in the voting process. If any members feel like they need more time or would like to engage in dialogue before casting their vote, that sort of thing.
Thank you. And once you finish sort of scrolling through this, I think we move to the vote. Should remind everybody that the vote is sort of a majority section. If we have a majority, it passes. Yes, Representative Robbins.
My apologies, Mr. Chair. I had not been available at the last meeting. So these are the summary bullet points, but it's still not the final draft that we're sending to the legislature, correct? So we're just voting whether we want these included in the final. I just want to make sure I'm very clear on what the point of voting on these summaries is.
No, I appreciate that very much. It is a vote on the major bullet points, and as identified, it's not written in an easy narrative. It's bullet points, and the bullet points were the recommendations for the subcommittee. If these are approved by a majority vote, we will continue to work on final language where this is truthfully more of a narrative, more of a report instead of bullets, and we will vote on that as well. And the process that if we have majority vote for the 2 subcommittee recommendations, Mr. Vogel is going to continue to work on the rough draft of the final report. The rough draft of the final report will be distributed to the group all task force members next week, early next week. And then by next Friday, we're just going to open it up to a discussion regarding the language, where all members can say, you know, this isn't really saying what I thought it was going to say, or you forgot this, and we can work on the actual language. But what we didn't want to do was get so far down the road where we have major disagreements on issues and we don't have majority. So there's no reason to write a final report when we don't have consensus. Does that make sense? Representative Robbins, did I answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Geffen, if I may.
Please.
I know that we're going over these points collectively to vote. I do just wanted to be on record that in regards to stating the facts, an objection that Inspector Moody had in regards to one of the points for the remedies, that I've had lived experience in regards to the fact that she shared not being true. It was said that she was going to reach out to speak more concerning that, and I have not received any correspondence at this time.
Understood. I think if there are some specific and individual things, we could take them offline a bit. I certainly did hear that and want to, follow up with that as well. But let's maybe the three of us and others could stay online after, and when the recording's done, have a discussion about that. Is that acceptable?
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chair Geffen, I do have a full day today, so I don't have a lot of wiggle room in my calendar. I have asked my staff to look into that, and so they are pulling together the information. It's just also with the holidays, we haven't had an opportunity to reach back out to Ms. Williamson.
Is there a time where we could connect for 5-10 minutes, or is this something maybe we could just do you have an anticipated time when
we can go ahead and set that up? Autumn Baum, who is our legislative director for OIGs in this call, so we'll make a note of it to schedule a meeting, or to have someone from our background studies division reach out to Ms. Williamson.
Okay, thank you.
I'd also like to state that I do already have documentation drawn up by my lawyers with facts. So just want to say that as well.
And I really think it's important we separate the personal from the mandate we have here. I am not diminishing any importance of this, but I think in this form, try to separate it, but resolve it. Thank you both for being available for that discussion. Okay, Mr. Vogel, let's go back full screen and move forward, please. And I think at this time, Mr. Vogel, we'd like to move forward with the vote on, I guess we'll start with the disqualification subcommittee's recommendations.
Okay, Mr. Chair. So this would be a vote then to adopt the bullet point recommendations in the disqualification subcommittee submitted for inclusion in the final report.
And do we need somebody to move for that?
Yes, Ms. Basham has raised her hand also.
So moved.
That's what I was gonna do. And
okay, I believe I heard Judge Kulik make that motion, so I'll just record her as having done so.
we can arm wrestle over it.
We would then need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Urban. All
Thanks,
right,
you guys, and I apologize for forgetting and not knowing.
all right.
Thank you.
No worries. Okay, in that case, I'll call the roll, Mr. Chair. Ms. Basham.
Approved.
Senator Champion. Senator Champion. Ms. Dawson.
Approved, in favor.
Mr. Esme.
In favor.
Ms. Evans.
In favor.
Mr. Geffen.
In favor.
Mr. Hanson.
Abstain.
Ms. Huntley,
In favor.
Mr. Urban,
In favor.
Ms. Kaser,
In favor.
Mr. Kammer,
In favor.
Lieutenant Knotts,
In favor.
Judge Kulik,
In favor.
Senator Matthews, Senator Matthews, Ms. Matson,
In favor.
Representative Mueller, Representative Mueller. I'm sorry, Representative, if you're speaking, I can't hear you. I don't know if anyone else can. I'm going to.
Can you hear me?
Now we
Yeah,
can,
now.
Ms. Representative Mueller.
Yeah, sorry, I'm unable to vote because I can't fully see what's going on. So can you just pass over me? That would be great.
Certainly, Representative. Inspector General Modi.
This is Inspector General Moti. DHS is going to abstain on this. I do want to go on record in saying that DHS has concerns with in the proposals around the fraud related crimes on that, and so are open to further discussions, but we will abstain at this point.
Thank you. Mr. Page. Mr. Page. Ms. Robertus.
In favor.
Representative Robbins.
No.
Mr. Sandoval.
In favor.
Thank you. Judge Satterback. Judge Satterback. Ms. Sherlock.
In favor.
Mr. Tatum. Mr. Tatum. Ms. Williamson.
In favor.
Okay, and then Representative Mueller, would you like to cast a vote? And Mr. Chair, if you'd like, I could briefly discuss the recommendation, the bullet point recommendations that Representative Mueller can't see because she's on her phone.
I think I'm just going to abstain. Thank you.
Okay. All right then, Mr. Chair, the motion carries with 16 ayes, 1 nay, and 3 abstentions among the members who are present.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vogel. And so, as I discussed briefly, and we'll move to the remedies recommendations. With these adopted, Mr. Vogel, will you continue to work on the final drafting of the recommendations using the bullet points provided in the vote today as instructive towards that? And again, we'll have those distributed early next week, and we'll have an open discussion regarding that language in a week's time. I think our next thing would be is we need to address the remedies recommendations. Mr. Vogel, were the remedies, I apologize, were the remedies recommendations as part of the bullets that you provided, or do we have a separate one? Okay.
Mr. Chair, bullet point form of the remedies recommendations were circulated. I believe this form was this document was as well, which is those bullet points in more polished language.
And why don't we just do a quick scroll through, and then if someone wants to motion for, or move, I should say, for a vote on this, it would be appreciated.
And I apologize, Representative Mueller. I'm scrolling, as you might imagine, and I do stand available to give you a brief summary if you would like.
Thanks. I'm just going to abstain from the votes, and then if I'm needed for a tiebreaker or something, we'll figure it out then.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Representative. And Mr. Chair, if I scroll too quickly, please let me know and I can highlight any of these recommendations.
I appreciate that. We've been going over them for a long time, and I appreciate just that last little look in case somebody had something. Does anybody want to move towards next steps with the remedies recommendations?
Yeah, I can do that.
Go for it.
I would move for a vote on adoption of the remedy subcommittee recommendations into the final report.
I
Hammer
second.
seconds. Oh,
Thank you
Hearing a
all.
lot of seconds there, so that's a motion and it's a second, Mr. Chair.
Proceed, please, Mr. Vogel.
All right then. Ms. Basham,
Approved.
Senator Champion. Senator Champion. Ms. Dawson,
In favor.
Mr. Esme,
In favor.
Ms. Evans,
In favor.
Mr. Geffen,
In favor.
Mr. Hanson,
abstain.
Ms. Huntley,
In favor.
Mr. Urban,
In favor.
Ms. Kaser,
I would be in favor. I wonder if there, when we get to the draft though, if there could be something noted around, particularly around the maltreatment determination. I think I've raised some worries about that and the consequences of our recommendation, and it has an impact on other statutes, and just how we would maybe want to note that there's some incongruencies and that would have to be resolved. But otherwise, I would be in favor of adopting.
okay, Mr. Chair, do you have any response to that point?
We're certainly going to have opportunities with smaller pieces and even truthfully a minority report section on if there are concerns. And I think we'll further address what that's going to look like in a week's time. But
That sounds
noted.
good.
Thank you.
And in the meantime, Ms. Kaser, I'll mark your vote as a yes, if that sounds good. All right. Mr. Kammer,
In favor.
Lieutenant Knotts,
In favor.
Judge Kulik.
In favor.
Thank you very much, Judge. Sorry, your voice cut out there for a second. Senator Matthews. Senator Matthews. Ms. Mattson.
I'm in favor. I would like to note though, in a couple of these situations with DHS response times, traveling set-asides, and access to community resources, that the employer not be left out of receiving information and being notified. It's so, but I'm not opposed to what's here.
And I would certainly mirror what I said to Ms. Kaser's concern that these certainly can be raised next week and finding places to include concerns.
And in the meantime, Ms. Mattson, I'll mark you as a yes vote if that sounds good. All right, seeing your thumbs up, Representative Mueller.
She said she was going to abstain.
Yeah, yes, Ms. Evans, but I want to hear the formal vote if I can.
Yep, abstain.
Thank you, Representative, and sorry to put you through that formality. Inspector General Modi.
DHS abstains.
Thank you. Mr. Page. Mr. Page. Ms. Robertus.
Abstain on this one.
Representative Robbins.
No.
That's a no, Representative Robbins?
Yes, sir. No.
All right. We're going to use a no. Mr. Sandoval.
Yes.
I can use a yes. Judge Satterback. Judge Satterback. Ms. Sherlock.
In favor.
Mr. Tatum. Mr. Tatum. Ms. Williamson.
In favor.
All right, Mr. Chair, the motion carries with 15 ayes, 1 nay, 4 abstentions of the members present.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vogel, and thank everybody for their time. I think, Mr. Vogel, at this point, the task is clear. The course is clear. As we have to continue to write. we have the mandate now to continue the work we're doing to turn recommendations into our report. Mr. Vogel, please correct me again if this is off in any way. That the goal is to get the group that rough draft and open this up we're really hoping people can read it because we want to have we're running out of time and we need to have a very thoughtful conversation in a week's time to determine if there are things raised by Ms. Case or Ms. Mattson that need to be included. If we're moving from synthesizing these sort of bullet recommendations to more thoughtful recommendations, we are off course in any way. If we've missed some data that has been discussed, we need to know about it. And so moving forward, it's time to write. And it's also important that everybody read to the best of their ability. It's a really hectic time of the year, I know, for people, but I hope people can read it and come next week, not trying to read it next Friday, having read it and having concrete feedback to report. We want this report to reflect the work that we've worked so hard on these many months. So as much as people can stay the course for another couple of weeks, I'd appreciate it. Mr. Vogel, did I miss anything?
I don't believe so, Mr. Chair. And I suppose just as an update on my end, I've been working to develop text from these bullet points and from text developed by the remedies and disqualification and data subcommittees. If it sounds appropriate to you and the members, I'll circulate the rough draft version of that text. I can't promise it'll be pretty. Apologies for that, but the rough draft version of that text by Monday evening to give members a couple of business days to do that digesting. Does that sound like a good plan to you, Mr. Chair?
It does. The only other thing I would say is that if you have the time to read it and come up with some brilliance and want to share it prior to Friday, we'd appreciate it. Certainly language change suggestions, bigger issues. I think the further we're out in front of it, the more thoughtful we can be on Friday. I would suggest that if you have changes, thoughts, additions, to send an email to Mr. Vogel, and Mr. Vogel can then distribute it then to the rest of the group, so we're ahead of it by Friday. Is that acceptable, Mr. Vogel?
Yes, Mr. Chair. For open meeting law purposes, if there's substantive discussion surrounding those emails, we'll want to bring that up in the meeting itself, or otherwise
Absolutely.
Post copies of those emails or something of that nature.
Okay. It just maybe continue to remind emailers to that effect. Today's main issue was voting. We voted, and we have no other business set to discuss. Unless there are some other concerns, we can adjourn. Does anybody have anything they want to add for today? Ms. Kaser, please.
Thank you, Chair Gaffin. I just had a clarifying question, and I don't know if Mr. Vogel would know the answers. Are we supposed to also in our draft have proposed language, legislative language? And I don't know if there's been any thought around any of that, but that was just a wondering. I thought I recalled that we needed to have something, but maybe not.
Mr. Chair, I can actually answer that question.
Please.
As far as I understand, Ms. Kaser, the statute that enabled the task force empowers it, or it gives it the option essentially of proposing draft language, but I don't believe it's a requirement. And essentially in none of the discussions I've heard in the subcommittees has that been anticipated as what's intended for this final report.
And I would second that we had discussions sort of early on that we didn't really want to get. We wanted to look a little bit bigger picture and not kind of get lost in drafting the actual language. And so that was, I think, the decision early on. Thank you, Ms. Kaser, though. It's a great question.
As a former legislator, I concur, because drafting it is going to be a long and complicated process, working with the reviser to make sure that there are no inconsistencies aside from those that Ms. Kaser has already potentially brought up. So I love to leave it to the folks who do that for a living.
I
Yeah,
appreciate
and
it in so many
I've-
ways.
And I've talked to a couple of legislators about it and have heard back from them, like, let's talk when session starts. And so that would be after our deadline anyways, in the first couple weeks of January. So.
Thank you, Judge Vice Chair Evans. Ms. Williamson, your hand's up, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've mentioned this to Mr. Vogel on this morning. I know leading up to now, I've had the task force link and on my calendar with the series, accepting the series, and for some reason it's no longer on there. So I don't know if that maybe is an issue for others. So I would suggest that maybe another invitation is sent out for our next meeting, since it's so imperative that we are all present.
It's a great idea. Mr. Vogel, can you be tasked with that in addition to your other stuff? That's just anything we can do to simplify attendance is a great idea. Thank you, Ms.
Definitely,
Williams.
Mr. Chair. And I'm looking into the issue with your invitation specifically, Ms. Williamson. I think it might have to do with the two different email addresses we have in our system for you. But in any event, thank you for bringing up that concern.
Agreed. Ms. Sherlock, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So who is going, I mean, it sounds like Mr. Vogel is going to be doing a bunch of this writing and already has, and then it's going to be in more paragraph form than bullets. You're going to get that out to all of us to review before next Friday's meeting. Is that correct? Where we're expected to weigh in on details at that point. Did
correct.
I understand that correctly? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sherlock. And seeing no other hands raised, and I know people have busy, important schedules. And with that, we're going to adjourn. We've got work to do. And I appreciate all of you and your dedication to this task force and the issues